things that makes Mequon and Thiensville, but certainly Mequon, very special is the amount of open space that we have and how people have made it a priority. Places like Spirit Lake, Bouquet Woods, Rotary Park, Highland Woods, and there's a Glen over on Pioneer Road, all kinds of things. But open space has been a priority. And it's not just having the open space, but it's the stewardship of the open space. Many of us are Rotarians in the room, and we've worked for over 20 years on Bouquet Woods, including bringing in the goats, which is always fun to do. But today we're going to learn about one of the newer projects in our community, and it's probably one of the most energetic projects you're ever going to run into. Any project that spans 300 years, it's pretty amazing. Our speakers today are going to be Kristin Nuernberg, who of course was the mayor and the person who was the one of the people who picked up the ball and really ran with the nature preserve. And then Kristin Thiel, who is now the executive director of the Mequon Nature Preserve. So, if you're ready, Kristin, come on up. And again, Jeff Wensler from our board is going to be recording this, and recordings will be available. So.
Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming. And if anybody sees my crib notes out there, it would be helpful for me to have them, but I'll go without them and hope for the best. But again, thank you for coming, and it's really appreciated. And before I start though, I just really want to give credit to 3 partners who were just phenomenal, and I don't think this would have happened without them. Certainly one is the city that borrowed $2 million and gave another $500,000 to really kick the project off. But also, the Ozaki Washington Land Trust was our broker and really handled. And they had the expertise and success in buying large properties, and they were wonderful. And of course, the Greater Milwaukee Foundation. Because people don't like to give to governmental entity, we put everything that we received as a gift at the foundation so that people would feel satisfied their money and donations would be using appropriately. But I'd like to start with the city, and the city distributed a community-wide questionnaire in 1999. And they were asked if they would be willing to spend tax revenue on an open space. And a majority said yes, everywhere from $30 per year for 20 years to $1,000 per year for 20 years. So that was that was set as a priority for the city, but there was nothing to kind of trigger it to do something until a gentleman named Mr. Dick Patty came along. Now Dick was 89 years old. He's a retired chairman of Time Insurance, and he had a fund at the Greater Milwaukee Foundation from which he made the largest personal donation out of the foundation. That was $500,000. But kind of going back to what he was doing, if you look at this map here, you may not know it, but down here is Cole Park. It's a whole mile long. It's actually more than a mile long, and it's 274 acres. And he was very concerned about the park, as was the CEO of Election Village, which is just on the other side of the park. It's right here. What the CEO, Gary Mon, was concerned about was that the neighborhoods were deteriorating. The park may become just weeds, and it would really adversely impact their ability to recruit people to Election Village. So what Gary did is he decided to get the residents together and ask them what they would like so he could have input into a plan with Milwaukee County Cool Park. Well, in the process, Dick Patty participated in this, and afterwards he said to Gary, the CEO, come up to my apartment. I want to talk to you about this. And he said, I've got the money, you get the people. And that was kind of it. And so that kind of started the whole thing off. And it's kind of funny, Dick lived in an apartment that faced north. He could see the whole square mile of what the nature preserve would be. And I often think, what if he lived in the other apartment across the hall? He would see Northridge, and he might have a different feeling about all this. But anyway, he had crisscrossed the country as a hitchhiker, and he loved the country, and he really wanted to save some land. He also wanted to promote intergovernmental cooperation. So that was the setting, and then he was trying to give this 500,000 to different people, but no one seemed to be interested. And eventually it got to me, and I thought, my gosh, we just had this survey that people want this, and so I said, sure, and that kind of started the whole thing off. And because I felt the land trust would be really a wonderful partner and really privately be able to conduct negotiations and purchases, that they should be a part. So they joined immediately. The Rainbow Hockey Foundation joined immediately, and that got us going. So there were the three partners, and then one other thing I'll tell you is Dick was thinking of a little park across the street. And so we're talking in Dick's apartment, all the partners, you know, whatever they are, whoever they are. And Steve Seifert, the executive director of WLT, said, why are you thinking so small? Why don't you buy the whole section? Well, the whole section is 640 acres. I thought, oh my, that's quite a bit of land. But it did increase our vision, and we have bought, over the years, at least 2/3 of the section. So it includes all the large parcels except for the two that Wayside Nursery owns. So the first parcel that the Land Trust chose to buy, or worked with, was the Batzler family. Now the Batzler family, it has this site, right here. This is Batzler. And the Batzler was Jimmy and Susie Batzler, but Susie was a Ginninger. And the Ginningers had, right here, 72 acres. But sometime before 1892, they moved over and they bought this. Oops, I'm doing the wrong thing. This. And then they were farming. She was actually lived and grew up on a home on County Line Road. They were poor, but somehow after she got married, they decided to buy the family's farm. So it's now the Batzler project. And they worked very hard. They, I don't know if you ever went to Trackside Inn. That was theirs. They built a house across the street in Huntington Park. And they spent their whole life within kind of a 5-mile area. Jimmy grew up on a farm, which is now Johnson's Park. And there was a church there, if you remember. And his dad worked for the Servite brothers, who had a monastery where Servite Woods is now. And if you actually drive on Servite Drive, you will see the original silo that they built with stones. It's really kind of interesting to see. So anyway, they were interested in selling the land to OWLT because Susie was dying of cancer. And their son Mike had no interest in farming. Mike told me that his body just couldn't take it. It was too strenuous for him. And he didn't like the vagaries of selling product in a farm market. It was too uncertain for him, so he didn't want to continue. So this is a story that's repeated throughout the nature preserve of being the last generation of people that actually wanted to farm here, even though they loved the land. It wasn't that they were unhappy by any means. So, so the Land Trust bought that first parcel. I think it was 70 acres. I don't have my map with me. 70, yeah. And so that started it off. The next parcel that the Land Trust wanted to buy was the Stouse parcel. And this is just such a storied parcel. It was bought first in the Stouse family. The original Stouse member bought it in 1841. That land was with that family for 160 years. And it went through various stages of what farms did, from raising, they had dairy herd for a while, they had cattle for a while. And they've had 3 homes on this site here. They started there with a stone house, and eventually they replaced it with a Queen Anne place kind of house, and that burned down in 1933. And the Thiensville Fire Department had no source of water, so they looked at it, burned down. And then the house that's there now was built. But it was a wonderful family, but again, the story is there are 3 children of Mel. One is Dawn, a daughter who got married and lived in Germantown, is raising her children. Another is Donald, who lives on the property someplace up here. And he became an architect, so he obviously wasn't interested in farming. But the one child that was interested in farming, his name was Danny, and that is his legal name, Danny. And he loved the property, as the whole family did. In fact, the daughter, Dawn, told me that she was really pleased it was becoming a nature preserve because she played in those woods, in the Stouse woods, and now her children could too. So a tragedy hit the family in 1990, got this right, 1998. Mel was picking up his grandson, and he drove out, he exited onto Mequon Road from a gas station in Germantown. I think you all familiar with that gas station. And he was hit by a young driver and killed. Fortunately, the grandson was not. So that started a whole cascade of thinking about what to do with the farm, and it was on that background, that the land trust approached the Stouse family. And so a deal was made to buy the land, but Danny, who loved farming, still wanted to farm. So actually very helpful to OWLT, Ozaki Washington Land Trust. Danny decided, they sold the property to the land trust, but then Danny continued farming, and he had a lease. But unfortunately, another tragedy struck this family that I don't have my crib notes, so I might get this wrong, but Danny was killed. He had a heart attack while he was bicycling on the Ozaki Urban Trail when he was 56 years old. So anyway, so that happened, and the farm then was rented out to other nearby farmers who were interested. So the sale was complete, and the thing that you have to think about with this site, it's the most important site of all of the sites, of all the properties. So I want you to look at this property. This property is this. See how large it is? Okay. And what the point is that it's the backbone of the nature preserve. If you didn't have that piece, no piece would be connected to another piece. And your idea, when you want to restore land, is to have a solid mass of land that you can start doing things like, and Kristin will talk about it, but creating nature preserves, wetlands, and expanding the forest from the woodlots that exist there. So that was purchased, and thankfully that really set the nature preserve on a good course. The truth is, though, that if you look at the nature preserve of the Stouse family and the Gittinger family, that together would be about 300 acres, and it would be large enough to start a restoration project, but it would be even better to have more land. So the land trust continued to purchase land, and the next piece they purchased was this, the Mutz farm. Now, Frank Mutz came to the United States in the late 1900s. He was a stonemason. He was trained in Germany. He was an adult. And he came over, and he continued to be a stonemason. He lived in northern Milwaukee County. And then at some point, before 1915, he bought this parcel of land. And so there's a whole 4 generations. They all have the same name, so it gets me confused. There's always Gertie or Gerda and whatever, Frank and Albert. But anyway, so they sold the land, and I was able to talk to Frank's great-granddaughter, Cheryl, and she told me some stories about what happened on that farm, because she doesn't remember her great-grandfather, but she certainly knew her grandmother. And her grandmother raised vegetables, and Cheryl would go place to place with her as she sold them. And her grandmother also told her stories about, during the Second World War, there were a lot of POWs in Wisconsin, German POWs. And because the descendants in this state, a lot of them were German and spoke German, that the federal government thought this would be a great place to house POWs, and it was. And Cheryl tells me the story of how, by the way, her grandmother came from Germany as an adult and spoke German, that she really welcomed these POWs because so many able-bodied young men were gone to the war that there was a real severe labor shortage to work these farms and harvest the products. So I thought that was really interesting. So they were here now. They sold the property, but I want you to just remember one thing. So Frank came, and then he had 8 children, but Albert and Peter bought land down here, which was later purchased by Senator Cole of all people. I'll tell you about that later. But then after the Mutz property, or the Fox property was purchased, the last Mutz married a Fox, and that's how that happened, of course. So the next piece was the Bacher piece. And the Bacher piece, this is the new kid on the block. Every other piece, they had been on the land at least 100 years. But this piece was Joel, and he
bought it in his 30s and he sold it in his 50s. He was only there for 20 years. But it's another story where Joel was on a farm that grew cucumbers for pickling on 60th Street, South 60th. So he came up here, and guess what he was growing? Cucumbers for pickling. He also liked peppers, and I learned this from Buddy Schmidt, who was a good friend of his. But at some point, and by the way, they leased out a little piece, maybe it's 5 acres, to two friends who grew emu here. So there was an emu farm here too. I tried to find the building permit for the shed, and there none exist. I think they just built this thing. But anyway, it's gone, and it was repurposed. Someone took it to the old farm and rebuilt it. So anyway, so we have the Bacher farm, and talking to Buddy Schmidt, he said that Joel was just, he was not happy. He was not happy for several reasons. His son, Jason, had no interest in farming. He had a landscape business that he ran out of the exit emu barn. By the first time I walked by there, I had an emu look at me, and I was kind of shocked. But anyway, they were gone, and so Jason put his landscaping business there. So Buddy tells me that, he says, what am I working my butt off for? Jason doesn't want property, so I'm just selling. But he was also unhappy because I think I would have a different view. He was unhappy because he was totally surrounded by the nature reserve. So he felt that was detrimental to his ability to get a decent price for his property. He was concerned that people wouldn't want to live there, and I thought, heck, some developer would say that's perfect. And it could have accommodated, I think that's was 5 acre zoning, so it would have accommodated 10 houses. But anyway, he sold it and he moved to Lamira, and he and his wife Rita. And he died about 10 years later, and she died about 20 years later. So they're both gone. And Jason, the dad, he had 3 children again. Jason didn't want to farm. He had a son in Arizona. He didn't want to farm, and he had a daughter in Chicago, and she didn't want to farm. So once again, that is the last generation of farmers on this property. So then the next purchase was, whoops, oh, I keep hitting the wrong button, is this, Spirit Life Church. And I really thought to buy Spirit Life Church was really important, and the reason was this. If you look at this property, here's Cole Park, and one of the things Mr. Paddock really wanted was to have a cooperative arrangement with Milwaukee County to show there could be intergovernmental cooperation to the benefit of everybody. So the idea was the nature preserve would have passive recreation like walks and trails and snowshoe and look at birds or whatever, and then Cole Park would have active recreational uses like a basketball court or baseball diamond or soccer fields. It had been wonderful. So the reason I thought it was important to get this piece is that this is the longest border that we would have with Cole Park, which would accommodate perhaps more easily the egress and whatever between the 2 pieces of property. So we bought that, and the other value of this is that it had this building. This building, for all the problems we've had with it, it was in a sense to serve as a center that if we worked with Cole Park could be used. It also would accommodate offices. There's a whole bank of offices back here and a boardroom for the Mequon Nature Preserve Inc. Corporation. And then it would also accommodate, obviously, education. There's 2 classrooms, there's this auditorium. And so I thought this was a perfect building. So it was purchased. But there was another story to that this building needed a lot of help. And so it was totally refinished. Everything you see in here is new. The only thing that's not new is the wooden pine boards. But anyway, and the seats you're sitting on, they were donated by Marcus Corporation. They were in one of their restaurants they were renovating. So this is a whole new place. But the final piece of land was this little piece, Cole Park. So, and I was going to tell you, this piece was owned by one of the Mutzes. And anyway, a church came along, Spirit Life Church, that was formed in the early 1990s. It wanted to move to Northridge because it thought Northridge is a going place, and they're going to have this great church theater style with music and all sorts of activity, and it would thrive here. Well, it didn't. It did at first, and they had so many parishioners, or not parishioners, but people, that congregation, that they really felt they needed to expand the church and certainly expand the parking lot. So they went to speak with Brad Steinke, who at the time was the community development director, city of Mequon, and he told the Spirit Life people, Lori and Tom Wilkie, who were the ministers, that the Nature Preserve, Ozaki Washington Land Trust, was interested in purchasing this land. So, long story short, they accommodated. But what I thought was interesting was when the Wilkies bought this property, it was owned by Herb Cole. And what I think happened is that Herb Cole was buying, and his family was buying land for Northridge and other places. And I think they bought this in anticipation of Northridge thriving. But obviously it didn't thrive, but the church ended up with the property. And the congregation was dwindling. They sold the church and the 27 acres that come with the church to the Nature Preserve, and they bought I don't know if you realize there was a Lutheran church just down the street here that had lost its congregation. So they bought that, and that's where they end up being. So the last piece we wanted to buy, well, we wanted to buy everything, but you can't buy everything, is this coal piece. Now the coal piece is 6 acres, and perhaps it's not that big a deal, but 2 things about it. It extends Trinity Creek. Trinity Creek came from over here and went along here to here. Then it goes under a culvert under Wauwatosa Road. And people like Kristin and others wanted to really make a complete restoration of the creek. The creek had been in a ditch, and it was drained, so to speak, and the wetlands were drained so that the farmer could have as much arable land as possible. And if you remember, I guess I remember when I first moved here with my kids, that was all pumpkin fields. Don't you remember that? All the pumpkins that were grown out there? And so anyway, when it became part of the Nature Preserve, the creek turned into a meandering stream, and so it could reinvigorate the wetlands. They would return, and so there's really a wonderful creek there, and there's a pond, a couple ponds, and now it goes all the way out to Wauwatosa Road. So in looking at this, I guess the question is, how much does this all cost? A lot. Actually, one donor said to me, it's cheap at any price, and I guess I do agree with them. So we started off with the city borrowed $2 million, took $500,000 from the park and open space. Those are fees paid by developers to pay for things that their development creates a need for. So that city pitched in $2.5 million. Mr. Paddock pitched in another $500,000. So we were at $3 million, but the whole property, all the land, not anything else, but just the land cost $7 million. So that was an effort that really took all hands on deck. Between the foundation, the land trust, put in stewardship grants, which were successful. I raised money, so working together, we were able to raise that. I'll just give you a few other numbers that you may not know about. This building had to be totally redone. I mean, the roof was leaking, there was water all over the place in here. And to do this building ended up to be over $600,000. And then we put in a wind turbine, photovoltaic, and geothermal. That was another $300,000. Then we put in a parking lot. So by the time we were through, we were really spending over $10 million. But it's paid off in that it's a wonderful place. It welcomes people from all over the region, and we're very happy that it's here. And I'm so glad you're here today to hear about it. So that's kind of what I have to say. And I think Kristin is going to follow up and really talk about wonderful topic.
I don't think I can follow that. That's kind of the name of it. Well, I thought I'd start mine off a different way. So I don't know. I mean, I'm going to make the assumption you can hear me right now anyways, without the mic, but that's hard to follow, because I don't know when's the last time any of you heard Kristin talk about this place? For me, it's been a bit. That was so awesome, and I'm so happy we're recording it, because my staff you can keep going if you want. I mean, I seriously was like, that felt like story time. I wanted you to sit down here. I loved it. I didn't know a huge amount of that. So, all right, well, for me, I can talk really long and I can talk really short, but I can show you more than I can say it. So I want you to watch this. It has sound, I don't know if it's necessary, but. So the nature preserve, after a legacy like Kristin handed me the key, if you will, a huge dream was born, and so many people partook in making it happen. It's not just me. It was really an honor to be the first hire, but I have a staff of 11 now. Scientists from all over the region come and help, and we have a beautiful restoration site that forever will be protected. We even have a playground. So if you guys are really, really bored when you're done, it's not raining, you can go play. It was all made by ash trees, because what else are you going to do with them? There's over 6 miles of trails, there's boardwalks, there's 2 towers, and how many of you have already hiked it? So awesome. And if you don't want to hike, I've got some beautiful golf carts that were just donated, and I would totally take you out anytime. It's my favorite thing to do. But then we get to the farm, which I'm going to talk about the farm later. The farm is a big piece. The Stouse family farm was probably my favorite part of the property after a while. It's kind of hard to say that because I have a lot of favorite parts, but it's about to be pretty epic, and it's pretty cool that you're going to be around and be a part of it. So the first thing we do when we want to restore land is rip out drain tile. So you're going to start to see some of the ponds, but this is it. Did you guys know this? You ever see drain tile? This is pretty heavy. You ever see drain tile? I didn't know how to find this at all. I mean, I've studied plants, so I can tell you what the plants were, and there's my professor to prove it. Didn't I know some plants? A couple at least, yeah. But I didn't know drain tile, right? So there's mapping, that's a city when a farmer records it, and then there's guessing. There's aerial maps that you can see. I bet in the map that Kristin handed you, you could see some of the lines. That's where you start. So you hire a guy with a backhoe who knows what he's doing, and you start breaking tile. And what I think is fascinating, and one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, was the very first wetland we did together, and Kristin drove a bulldozer. Side note, really important side note. Yes, she did. I did a little bit too, she was better. But it bubbled up out of the ground instantaneously. I had never watched the beauty of an artesian spring before. To sit above an aquifer is amazing. And it bubbles up out of the ground crystal clear, 40 degrees. It's absolutely phenomenal. This pond right out this parking lot filled in 24 hours. Like that. It was in October of 07. A couple of the other ones, we've got a huge one in the middle of the property. It's called Kristin's Pond. I went on the other day. And that is the largest one we have. It's 6 acres. It was awesome. We designed it with engineers, because you know that's what we think we ought to do after you get all these amazing scientists. These engineers tell you what to do, right? And so they said, okay, it's going to be 4 acres big. All right, cool. We broke up the drain tile. We let Mother Nature take course. It's 6.5 acres actually. She kind of said, yeah, right. Here's how big it's really going to be. And that happened in February. Those wetlands bubbled out of the ground in February is when we broke that drain tile. Never seen that before. And I know Kristin, there's so many stories. I could just stand up here for hours telling stories. I know Kristin talked about the importance of Trinity Creek, and she's right. This building is a cork on it, technically. So I'll pitch that later. But the water table, UWM, MSOE, and ourselves have studied the water table here. It is 2 feet higher than the ground. So if we were to uncap this building and uncap the clay, we'd be in a pond. And we could be swimming at the headwaters of Trinity Creek. And what's really cool about this creek is it connects the Milwaukee River, and even fish like the northern pike come and spawn at our ponds here. So this is a pretty important artesian spring that leads to all of this. Oh, and the forest, how can you not talk about the forest? So we have 3 forests, and when I was hired in 07, I nicknamed them the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because when you're a staff of one and you have to like restore this land, here's your 150-year plan, you have to prioritize, right? So I had to prioritize. Now, none of them would be called that. Thanks to the effort of so many people, volunteers, children galore, corporations coming in, donations from many, if not all of you in this room. The invasives are gone and these forests are beautiful. We do have to maintain them. I mean, don't we all? We have to maintain them. But it's gone. It's epic. So these forests are just crystal clear, beautiful. The Harvey's Woods, which is part on the map, it's the Stouse family farm. It's the forest below the farm field. Does that make sense? The farm field, forest. Okay. Harvey's Woods is like the blueprint of who we will be, what this land will be one day. So right now, if you go into Harvey's Woods, and you have to come with me because then I geek out. It is my favorite forest. It has something called an E-horizon layer, soil layer. Anyone ever heard of an E-horizon layer? And if you have, then you need to come and work with me because I had never heard of it. So an E-horizon layer means it's never been tilled. I mean, I don't know about you, but in Wisconsin, to have land that's never been touched and tilled is pretty profound. So scientists from around the world, or around the world would be awesome, around the Great Lakes have studied that. So this is an incredible forest that has indicator species. I remember when I was in college not knowing that this place was happening. So back in like 03, 04, when did we go hang out in that forest? And we would go to apparently a mulch pad that was really important that you put in to get the senators to come out and hand you a big check, right? I didn't know that because I was a kid in college, right? But that was happening, and I was going out with you, and we were finding these indicator species of plants that were telling us that this was a pretty epic forest, that it was pretty profound. And I remember we studied leatherwood, a shrub. There was like 2 of them alongside a pond, and now that's the understory of the forest. So my point in rattling off all this random stuff is to tell you that this dream, thanks to the history you just heard, this was almost, I hate to call it accidental, but this is a pretty epically, environmentally sound location, a destination that can teach so many incredible things that's kind of happened as almost an accident, right? One man's dream, he had no idea that we're standing on the division of 2 watersheds. We're filtering millions and millions of gallons of water every time it rains. We're filtering that before it hits the deep tunnels. Let me tell you, MMSD loves us. That's a fact. But this is a critical site that all of you are part of, and I hope you feel that. So what's really cool is that my team and I've been here I just finished my 17th year. I don't know how that's possible, but I did, and I love it. I'm addicted, so I hope you like me. But I can't wait because the next chapter is huge. This dream began in 2000. So guess what it is next year for us? Simple math, 25th anniversary. How many of you want to come hang? I know, right? We're gonna have a party. I don't even know what it's gonna be like, and Kristin better be there so she can't say I know you want to, but you have to, and you have to speak at it. And but you don't know that yet. So we're gonna have our 25th anniversary, and we're gonna celebrate. And I don't know if we're gonna do a gala. It just doesn't feel like who we are. But we're gonna do something cool. And we're gonna launch the next chapter, because what I think is the coolest thing is thanks to the leadership of Kristin, of the Land Trust, of the city, all these partners, that 150-year master plan has predominantly been accomplished. So we did that plan in 25 years. Now the land isn't healed. I wouldn't pretend that all of that is done, but all the major benchmarks have been hit. All the wetlands, right? We just pulled off the last rain tile last week. I cried. I stood on the farm field of the Stouse family farm, and I cried. I watched the last drain tile get pulled out of the site. It's amazing. So the next 25 years, what are we focusing on that? If everything's done, what are we going to do? Right? Well, first of all, we got to maintain it. And then we got to teach, and we got to teach, and we got to teach more. Because I think you guys can probably assume how much the younger generation needs to understand the importance of the environmental systems we have here and how we need to protect them. And then just how critical we are. And Wisconsin is a huge player when it comes to water. We get to speak to that. We got to tell the world about that, right? So that's what we're going to do. Mequon Nature Preserve is going to be finally put on the map as an educational destination. One thing that you probably don't know, I think you would know because we don't talk about it, is monitoring. We've been monitoring this land for about 20 years. I mean, actually, thanks to Doc here, we do have 20 years worth of data. And it's really cool to have that baseline and to see how far we've come, right? From having 20 different bird species to now 270 bird species. It's pretty neat. So numbers like that, we're going to start to teach about how to do it. We also just hired Dr. Gary Casper this last year. He used to be the curator for the Milwaukee Museum. He's a renowned herpetologist. If you like frogs, turtles, or snakes, and you own a book He probably wrote it. So it's really cool to say he's a part of my team because he teaches me a lot every day. Because of him and his status and where he's been, we can now have the ability to really publish our research, right? So now our research isn't just going to sit on shelves and be pretty paper we look at. We can't brag about it and tell the story. On top of that, because he's a partner with UW Milwaukee, we can truly teach and teach accredited. So this next chapter, this next 25 years is going to be pretty big. You're going to see a lot of changes. The other change that I think is really cool, and if you drive around the block you can see it, is that last chapter of the South Family Farm. There you go. So in the master plan, it says that we had the ability, if we so choose, to keep some land in agriculture. So we kind of always wanted to. We wanted to pay tribute to what the land was and truly tell the story of from farm to forest. So that's what we're doing. I can tell you that last December I got, how many of you have ever gotten those emails where like, you know, if you marry this prince, you get $5 million, you know, like, or like if you call this person in Madagascar, you get all this money, right? You know what I mean? All this spam. I got an email on December 21st from someone I had no idea. I was actually out celebrating with my team. We were celebrating Christmas. We were doing a ridiculous like game show thing. So seriously, not focused on work. And I get this email pop up on my phone. I'm like, oh, this is a good one, guys. It's someone in Chicago. Huh, that's crazy. They really played this up well. Wow, $205,000. That's crazy. Look at that. And I was joking. So I didn't respond to the email. You know, I thought it was funny. I'm like, that's funny. I get back to my office the next morning. I have a phone call from a foundation I've never heard of, trying to wire us $205,000 because they heard about the project. That was really neat. Never had that happen before, and luckily they like us, so they'll be back. But they gave us all the money to finally jumpstart our farm project. So we are going to continue to farm on about 40 acres, but we're not going to do it with the corn and the soy and the rotational. We're not. We've got Fondi food out there right now, small-scale farmers. Most of them are refugee farmers from Laos, and we love them. That is really important food. Fondi food, that market has been around for over 100 years on Fond du Lac Avenue. So to have these farmers connected to us is beautiful. So what we're doing is we're going to do what we do best. So we just finished. We ripped out all the drain tile. The water's starting to bubble up out of the ground. We've recontoured this land to really match what it should have been, would have been. There's been some heavy erosion over the years, lots of farming. I definitely picked strawberries, raspberries, and corn there before. So they've been doing a lot of work there. We put in this gravel pathway so that the farmers, who most of them, I would say their average age is 60, and so we need to help them. So we got thanks actually to the Mequon Community Foundation, who is sitting right here, we were given funds and proceeds to put a UTV on the land for these farmers to not break their back or their personal vehicles and to get their produce to and from. So we've begun. We're going to now rearrange those farmers around the wetlands so that their farming works in harmony with the existing water that we have. Instead of trucking it in and fighting for it, we're going to have it there for them. And we also are giving them, I'm going to call it a gift. We're gifting them shrubs and basically perennial crops that we all would want to eat. Like, how many of you got obsessed with elderberry after COVID? If it's just me, I'm sorry, I'm obsessed with it. Hazelnut. How many of you like Nutella? My daughter only eats Nutella, I'm pretty sure. So I'm excited to teach these farmers who are also going to continue to do the crops that they want. We're going to teach them how to grow elderberry and hazelnut and serviceberry and things like that are indigenous to here and important food sources. And thank goodness Outpost is down the road because they know just how to sell it. So we have a full circle about to happen, and it's just beginning. So the last piece of this dream, I don't have a lot of money for, and it's big. So that's why I'm standing here too, is the building. So back to the building comment, right? Kristine's right. When I was first hired, I technically got the job in 2006, worked for 2 days, quit, went and worked for Melinda Myers for 8 months, remember this? And then called you and said, can you please have me back? I made a mistake. So, and then came back in 2007. So 2007 is really the beginning. But it's because they took me to this building, and I had just come off a master's of botany, and they walked me in, and I could identify the algae in the building, but I couldn't do anything else with it. I couldn't be a construction manager. Oh my goodness, no. Thank goodness they found they found way more incredible people to do that. So the next time I walked in, I actually could pick out an office and actually paint it, and so it was nice. So this building really, it's great, but it has a lifespan, like every building does. Some of its physical features that are failing because of the fact that it's sitting on a wetland. It's so humid, nobody can have a good hair day here ever. No, I'm kidding, it's more than that, but there's a lot of issues that happen. On top of it, we've outgrown it, just like you hear from every organization, right? The need is great. I don't have field trips that are 20 kids anymore. I have field trips that are 100. So the auditoriums are really important, but the classrooms are too small. And then I don't have a staff of 1 anymore. I have a staff of 11. So which is fine. I mean, I love that they're all young. Most of them, 6 of them are under the age of 30. It's so cool and crazy. But they love to bulk up in rooms, you know. But we need to grow. And so the dream is to build a campus, and I love the word campus for a reason, at the Stubbs Family Farm. Utilizing the existing barns, the beautiful historic red barns that need to stay there will stay there. And then kind of the silver ones that nobody really wants to look at, and we always thought it was weird they were painted silver, those are gonna go away. But there's a really cool angled one, and the building was built around an old hand-hewn mill that still works. So when you walk into the new facility that we'll have, you're gonna walk into the front doors like you did today, and the first thing you're gonna see is a mill. And we're gonna make sure it works and runs. We got rice on the land, so we might as well mill that. And there's a ton of brewers, I don't know, Foxtown. Anyways, we can totally mill a few things. So I'm very excited for what it could be. We're also talking to many different local organizations that maybe need a place, because we don't need to build a building just for Mequon Nature Preserve. We should build a building for the community. The loss of the Logeman Center hit many, just like actually was touched upon today with Bob. It hit a lot. We need resources for kids, we need resources for preschool and little ones, and we need resources for our aging community. So we're looking forward to building a facility that really helps a lot of needs in the community. So if anyone wants to help me raise 25 million, that's probably about the benchmark I have to hit. I'm 1 down, so 24 to go. I'm 44 years old, and I told my board I want to move into it when I'm 50. So I've got some serious work to do. The last little piece, because it's so much of what Kristin talked about. The Mequon Nature Preserve also did buy 66 acres across the street from the 76. So 66 acres is yet to be fully restored. It's predominantly, it's the Trinity Creek, it's contiguous. So what the dream is for the city and the Mequon Nature Preserve is to continue to purchase the land along Trinity Creek all the way, so that one day we can have our first east-west trail corridor for the community. So you can hike from here and go all the way to River Barn Park. So thank gosh there's 2 parks in that path too, River Barn and Trinity, the Trinity Preserve. So those are the big dreams yet to come, and I'm totally talked too long because I love to, and now I'm done. Is that okay? Is that okay, Bob?
A few minutes, if people have some questions for Kristin or Kristin.
It was so
Any
cute.
questions?
I know one more thing. Do you want to know why it's so on top of her head that she knows all these awesome facts?
You know what we're totally gonna also do at that 25-year party? We're gonna sell her book she's writing right now, The History of Mequon Nature Preserve. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
If there's one thing that Sam Cutler brought to our organization, it's the whole idea that history is a series of stories. It's not facts, it's not names. I mean, that stuff's important. But what I was listening to for the last 45 minutes was a story.
Yes.
And it's not
That
done yet.
surprised me. So Kristin and I were talking last fall that there's sort of nowhere for anybody to go to figure out what happened. And what people typically do, which is very natural, is they think they know the story and they kind of fill it in. And when they fill it in, it's not what happened. Yeah. So, and this is not a criticism, it's just people want answers, and if there aren't any out there. So anyway, we cooked this thing up that I was going to write a history. And I thought I'd wait till after the first of the year. And so I started last January. So I thought, oh, this is going to be, we bought this many acres, it cost this much, blah, blah, blah. It'd be kind of uninteresting, but going to what you said, what just really surprised me is talking to all these families
I basically talked to most of them, except the Bachers who are mad at us. Well, anyway, I've talked to a member of the Scouse family, hope to talk to more. I've talked to, a member of the Mutz family. I've talked to Mike of the Batchelor family, and talked to the, and then great place to find information are obituaries of all these people. Because they tell you a lot of stories. So that's what I think I really enjoyed about this project, is how many stories there are of people who stepped up and did something. And I have to tell you, the thing that surprised me about Mequon Nature Preserve is how many things could have gone wrong. And I'll give you one example. When we first met and invited the Land Trust to participate, and I think they're really critical and did a wonderful job, their board chairman, Kind Tarinas, was so excited, we're gonna do this. She goes back to her board, and the board said, not so fast. Our job is to have these little projects. We don't do mega projects. They're too expensive and it's beyond our capacity. Well, she figured out how to convince them they don't want a bunch of, degraded farmland that doesn't have anything on it, that's dead soil. But she convinced them to do this, and the Land Trust was just the most wonderful partner. To go out and buy 434 acres of land and to do it in 41 months is just amazing. So if you ever want to see a Land Trust board member, thank them for just the great job they did.
Hi, I'm Kristin Thiel. Welcome to the Mequon Nature Preserve. Come on in. So not only do we have 510 acres to explore, but we have a beautiful education center to teach the community. So we've got a couple different classrooms, a beautiful auditorium space. If you come in any day of the week, you can visit. We've got multiple different critters thriving in the building. You can come and visit the salamanders and the turtles we have. We also have this library area where we do a lot of programming for littles during the week. We've got craft and story time once a month. But the biggest thing we do here is educate kiddos. So we have field trips. Every day there's some kind of field trip here. We teach K through college, and all the field trips are free. So not a single dime will ever be handed out of your pocket to have your kids come and explore the nature preserve here. You're also going to see a timeline that will tell you the story. So even if we're not here, or you don't have one of the staff here to tell you what we're all about, you can read the timeline to see the farm to forest transformation that we're doing on all the acres.
But I wanted to let you know that Bob has been recognized by the Rotary Club, and he got a message, and he was received an award this past week. I can't tell you the way I'd like to, but I will tell you what was written to him by the Rotary Club. It said, "Dear Bob, at the heart of Rotary's mission is a profound commitment to advancing peace and goodwill across the globe. Since the early days, Rotary Club has recognized that fostering understanding, promoting social justice, and preventing conflict are the key to building a world where people and communities can thrive. The Agent of Peace Award reflects the Rotary's belief that peace is more than the absence of war. It is the result of deliberate action, mutual respect, and dedicated service to others. In this spirit, it is our great honor to inform you that you, Bob, have been selected as a recipient of the 2024 Agent of Peace Award. This prestigious recognition celebrates your exceptional efforts to foster international understanding and global goodwill, which have contributed to building peace on a global scale. Your dedication to peace is exemplified by your work with Friendship Force International, where you have been a member since 2002 and served as an exchange director and ambassador to numerous countries, and I believe Bob said 60 countries, promoting the philosophy that a world of friends is a world of peace. Your leadership is hosting Rotary Youth Exchange students and coordinating student activities has made a lasting impact on the lives of young people from around the world. Your tireless efforts with the Russian Leadership Program, Open World, directing delegations from former Soviet Union countries and raising funds for Ukrainian delegates demonstrates your commitment to creating bridges between cultures. Additionally, your contributions to the Adult Literacy Center of Ozaki County, Peru's EIGER School, and Guatemala Medical Relief Project highlight the breadth of your service, and all aimed at improving lives and fostering global humanity. They were delighted to present this award to him at the Rotary Foundation dinner on November 6, 2024. I congratulate you, Bob, and I would love to say cheers to you, Bob, because he is a great man to work with, and believe me, he's just has the phenomenal knowledge that I just wish I had part. So thank you so much for being our president and receiving this award, because you really deserved it.
And I would simply add that at the urging of a few of my people at the district level, I shared the award with my wife. She was a dental assistant in Guatemala. She spent 4 winters teaching English in Peru. She has been all over. So it's not just agent of change, it's agents of change. So, but thank you very much. So Ellen, you had a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
Hearing none? Oh, Rick, you were here. Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned.